I played better throughout the rest of the game. Hope it's up to your standards.
You played a lot. Okay. You played very well, dog.
Okay.
Best part is David Montgomery's
I know it was
face.
a poor man's anything, but
He like shrivels up.
He's I heard about it. That's all.
Call him out there, Dick. Andrew. Receipts. I didn't do it. Matt Ryan's a pretty good player, too.
Matt Ryan's a hell of a player.
I told him.
I'm giving you a hard time. I appreciate it, man.
What is happening, sports fans? Welcome back. Johnny Gaz Sports. Thank you for coming back for another video. Today is a very important one. Today we are talking Jared Goff. What should the Lions do with Jared Goff? They have a lot of questions to answer as they enter this offseason. We've gone over a lot of preemptive offseason things the Lions need to do to kind of get things going in a positive direction. There's several videos out there about the offensive coordinators coming back, Ben Johnson being a huge piece to this today. But today we're talking Jared Goff and his contract and what do the Lions do to move forward. We all know the story of Jared Goff, okay? The fact that the Lions have made the playoffs, went to the NFC Championship game, they've got a lot of media exposure this year. After the Jared Goff-Matthew Stafford trade, I mean, a lot of things came out about the story. So, little history on Jared Goff. He was a three-sport athlete in high school. We know he was a California Bear, California legend. Held several school records there still to this day. He was selected first by the Los Angeles Rams in 2016. California kid, born and raised. He had a shaky rookie season with the Rams. It actually went 0-7 in his rookie season. Not a great start there. But things did start to turn around. Over the next 2 years, things really started to get rolling. Jared Goff started to develop a little more confidence. Young coach Sean McVay comes into the mix, develops this kind of new age offense. So they really start to develop something there in Los Angeles. They end up going to the Super Bowl in 2018. Unfortunately, they don't win that Super Bowl. And after that point, things kind of start to go in a downward trend for Jared Goff as far as his tenure with the Rams. You know, there's a lot of things about that history there with the Rams between him and McVay and kind of what happened at the end there. We won't go on a deep dive on that. Ultimately, things soured between the Rams and Jared Goff. And they, after losing that Super Bowl in 2018, wanted to find that thing that would put them to the next level. That thing ended up being quarterback Matthew Stafford here of the Detroit Lions. So we know the big trade. I mean, we've talked about that already in previous videos as well. It's something that has kicked off, one of the things that have kicked off the culture change here for the Lions, in my opinion. But here's the details of the trade. We all know what happened. The LA Rams get Matthew Stafford in exchange for Jared Goff. Lions also got a 2021 third-round pick, as well as a 2022 first-round and a 2023 first-round pick. A lot of things have come out of this trade, not only with Jared Goff now being the Lions' staple at quarterback, and again, we'll talk about that here a little bit more down the road, but the Lions have also been able to turn these extra picks into huge talent, rookies and players that have helped them out over the last few seasons and put them in a place now where they are. It's a huge reason why the Lions have been able to take the next step and get out of the same old Lions routine and move into this brand new Lions. So we just said it. The team swapped former overall first-round picks here, which is, doesn't happen very often. Lions received the 2021 third round and the 2 first-round picks. They also turned these around into players like Ife Melifonwu, who played a huge role towards the end of the season this year and into the playoffs. Jamison Williams came out of this trade after some moves made by Brad Holmes in the draft. They were able to get him by moving up in the first round by combining a few picks along with this trade. Last year, they also obtained Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs as part of some of these picks relating into that draft. So again, big-time trade for both teams. I think it paid off for both organizations. The LA Rams got a Super Bowl. Lions got maybe their next level changing franchise quarterback. And again, we'll talk about that more in the video, and that's certainly debatable. But here in this trade, I think it worked out for both teams, and certainly for the Lions, they are able to get staple foundational pieces to move forward. Let's talk about Jared Goff's career in Detroit since this mega trade. Kind of started out shaky. You know, it was really shaky. They were 3-13-1 in their first season in 2021. We know that head coach Dan Campbell took over that same year. So these guys came in together and came into a situation that was really dark. We don't have to get into the history of the Lions. That's kind of its own video. There's plenty of content out there, and any true Lions fans knows how deep that goes. Coming off of the Quinn Patricia era, where things just did not go well. And again, that's kind of its own topic in itself as well. We won't dive into that. So these two gentlemen are coming in 2021 trying to pick up the pieces from what was left from Quinn and Patricia. Things started out shaky, like we said. They were 3-13-1 in their first season. They started out even 1-6 the following year in 2022. I think people really started to question whether Jared Goff was the true answer at quarterback. My personal opinion when that trade happened with Stafford is I honestly looked at him as a bridge quarterback. I thought, you know what, that's probably not the long-term answer. Truthfully, I hadn't spent a ton of time dissecting Jared Goff football. And based on his treatment and the way that the Rams just pushed him to the side, it was hard to think that he was going to pick up in such a troubled organization like the Lions, change everything around, change the culture, be a part of that. I just didn't see it at that time. So things were shaky even through the first half of the 2022 season. Now we know that they had a late turnaround in 2022. They ended up winning, I think, 8 of their last 9 games. Things really started to turn around at that point. We know they had the big-time victory in Lambeau to end that year, where they really had nothing to play for, but knocked the Packers out of the playoffs. That was Aaron Rodgers' last game as a Packer. So a lot of positive things started to flip at that point. And it's, not only was it Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, but this was the real true culture shift that I'm referring to. It started off with the offensive line, and as much as I discredit Quinn and Patricia from those years prior, they were able to establish some pieces on that O-line that has now turned into their foundation for their offense and really for the team and for the organization. They've added to that since then from 2021 forward with guys like Sewell, so on and so on. But that combined with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, which again, we have a video in the archives celebrating the fact that he's coming back next season. So definitely take a look at that. But he him getting more involved in the offense, really becoming this elite offensive coordinator, along with the O-line, along with the organization, adding key pieces, Amon-Ra St. Brown, other offensive pieces. They're able to insulate Jared Goff and put him in a much more workable situation, something that works for him. And I think that's what the Rams didn't do with Jared Goff. Now, some people would argue you shouldn't have to do that. Everyone wants that superstar quarterback. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the organization, the Lions, put pieces around him and did the right things to make sure that he could succeed. And we're seeing that now. We saw it towards the end of 2022, and we know, what that led to here this year. So they finished 9-8 in 2022. He was actually selected to a Pro Bowl that year, his third Pro Bowl selection of his career. And then we know what happened in 2023. It was a magical 2023. Jared Goff was really fantastic. He did have some downs during the season, but overall, he was really, really good. Better than good. The Lions finished 12-5, 14 wins this year, which is a franchise record for the Detroit Lions. Back-to-back playoff wins. That's the first time since 1957 the organization has done that. Just incredible. An NFC North Division title, their first since 1993. Back then it was the NFC Central. And they were one win away from the Super Bowl. One win away from the Super Bowl. And really, you know, if some other pieces fell in line there, if some different decisions were made and some plays were made, they might be playing in a Super Bowl here very soon. And as of I'm making this video, that's still ahead of us. And that was almost a reality. Now, we know what happened. But regardless, it was a magical year, maybe the organization's best in its history. And Jared Goff is a major, major piece to that. The Lions have a history of not being able to find the exact right guy. The organization has finally gotten to the point where I think they're out of the idea of being a joke. The paper bag Lions, the same old Lions. And Jared Goff is such a huge key piece to that. Let's take a look at Jared Goff's statistics, right? That's always a big piece before you look at a contract. I mean, you want to know where he's at, where he's been, where we're going. And the argument here always for Jared Goff is he's not a superstar quarterback, right? So let's take a look at some statistics of Jared Goff before we talk about what the Lions should do with him. Overall, Jared Goff has played 8 seasons. He has over 30,000 yards in the NFL, 185 touchdowns, and he's made 3 Pro Bowls. He's been relatively healthy over his career. Small little things in Los Angeles. He had a 3-game layoff in 2021 with the Lions, where he only played 14 games. But overall, he's been healthy. Let's focus on the stats since he's come to Detroit, because I think that's most important. What have you done for us lately? And for the organization, for the Lions to make a decision, they would really focus on what have they done for, what has he done for them? When I looked at Jared Goff's statistics, what pops out to me is over the course of 2021, 22, and into 23, into this last season, in very key statistics, he has gone up. Like I said, he's been healthy, so he's played in almost every game. His completions have gone up. Attempts have gone up. The percentage has been fantastic. The yards have gone up every year. His average per play, yards per game, touchdowns, they've all increased over that 3-year span. He threw a few more interceptions this season, but again, he also had more attempts. And there's always other factors that come into play for that. And 12 is not a terrible number when you think about the fact that he had 30 touchdowns. A rating of 97.9 this season in 2023. Speaking of 2023 statistics, he was second in the league in total passing, right behind Tua out of Miami. He threw for 4,575 yards. He was 4th in passing touchdowns in the league. And the Lions were the 3rd best total offense looking at yardage. And over the course of the last 3 years, they've gotten better and better. I think in 2021, they were 18th. Last year, they were 3rd. And again, they were 3rd this year. Jared Goff in the postseason this year, fantastic. Just fantastic. So if you're going to make an argument that, oh, well, he shrivels up in the playoffs, he can't get you to the next level. No, he was good in all 3 playoff games that they played. Overall, he passed for 837 total yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 103 quarterback rating. Not bad. And that's an understatement. He was really, really good. And like I said in a previous video, I'm sad that they couldn't get to a Super Bowl so he could just close that storyline. And we might just have to wait one more year. Let's talk contract for Jared Goff. Currently, he is on a 4-year, $134 million contract. He signed this in 2019. At the time, it was the most guaranteed money ever by a quarterback. I think it was $110 guaranteed, meaning $33.5 million a year. That's what he's making currently. Now, we won't go too deep into the woods as far as what is an elite quarterback, what is an elite quarterback actually worth. Obviously, we know market value would tell you the price just continues to go up, up, and up. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, those guys have gotten or will get contracts in excess of $50 million a year, if not more. $55 million a year, I think, in Burrow's case. Today is not the day to argue whether or not Jared Goff is elite. We will save that for another day down the road. The other playoff quarterbacks in the mix this year were Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, Stroud, and Love. In my opinion, Jared Goff was better than all of those guys specifically, and he beat 2 of those 4. And he got the Lions organization to a point that they had really never been. So I'm not saying that he's an elite quarterback, but he's certainly put himself in a discussion maybe on that next tier. I think based on everything that's happened with Jared Goff, based on the statistics we reviewed, his current contract, looking at the market value of other quarterbacks at his level and just above him, he's projected to get about $40 to $49 million per year. Pulled this number from CBS Sports. His contract numbers, courtesy of Spot Track. And the statistics were courtesy of StatMuse. Again, I try to confirm all of these details just so that when we do go through them, we're as close as we can get on these numbers. So again, he's projected to get $40 to $49 million a year annually. I want to go over a few quotes from Jared Goff before we go any further, and I give my personal opinion on what the Lions should do with Jared Goff. He says, since the playoffs started and we were able to win that game at home and see the fans' response, not only from me, but for the whole team, it's been so special. It's something I'll never forget. Obviously, the season didn't end the way we had hoped, and Sunday was disappointing. But yeah, those 2 home games in the playoffs were as special and electric an environment as you can imagine, and it was a lot of fun. He also said, I've loved every second of my time here and would love more. I love Dan Campbell. I love the coaches and all my teammates. Yeah, it would be great, but it's not up to me. Pretty realistic quote by Jared Goff there. But the other reason I wanted to bring these up is it's just part of the organization deciding on whether or not they want to make a move with Jared Goff right now or what they want to do with him. It's clear that he's won over a lot of folks. I think to me it's clear he likes being here. He's established himself. The fans who maybe have been questioning him at first have started to turn. Not everybody. There's definitely Jared Goff detractors there. You'll find them to this day all over the place. You don't have to look very far. But this season turned a lot of folks around, made a lot of folks think differently. And I think I'm one of them. I mean, he not just this season. I mean, he turned me a while back. His play at the end of 2021, at the end of 2022, I mean, going into Lambeau, I mean, statistically, he, again, just got better and better and better. I think he became more of a leader over the course of time. You could see him develop more strength, more inner strength, and get better at the things that he did well. Now he does them at elite levels. He's never going to be scramble quarterback. He's never going to be Mr. Athletic. He's never going to be able to get you a 25-yard first down on his legs. They're not going to rely on him for that sort of thing. But he's darn accurate when you can give him a little bit of time, when you have a little running game. I mean, he's proven that. He's proven it to me. So what do the Lions do with Jared Goff? I think the Lions have 3 options for Jared Goff. The number 1 option, I think, is sign him now, right? Do the best you can. Try to negotiate this thing right here and now. The number 2 option is you wait and see. His contract is not up until next season, so they could allow this to play out, see what happens in 2024, and then decide whether or not you want to offer him a contract at that time or let him walk. That brings up the 3rd option. If you get to that point where you allow his contract to end, you could then think about using the franchise tag. We won't go into depth about what the franchise tag actually is, but ultimately it's a very risky play in this case. We talked about what the market level is for elite quarterbacks. A franchise tag would most likely, and it's hard to speak on what the market level will be at 2025, but it will most likely be far below what those elite level quarterbacks get, and a lot of times what the second level quarterbacks get. You run the risk of alienating Jared Goff and his agency and his team by giving him what could be a disrespectful offer through the franchise tag. That's a risk you take. The other issue I see here with one of these options, either 2 or 3, with the wait and see approach, you never know what could happen. A major injury, which we've said he's remained relatively healthy, and knock on wood, he will stay that way. But I think there's always the potential for injury. There's always the potential that the play falls off. Now, I don't think that would happen. I personally don't think, based on the trajectory we looked at with his statistics, what he's shown us so far, what the Lions organization's trajectory has been, I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. It's the NFL. Things happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the draft and free agency. We have videos on those in the archives, and we have a draft video coming up. Take a look at those. But I think these are the 3 options that you have for Jared Goff in this moment as you enter the 2024 offseason. So what do the Lions do with Jared Goff? You sign him, and you sign him right now. No questions asked. The reason you do that are all of the things we've laid out here today. We've looked at the history. We've looked at what's happened since he's come to the Lions. We've looked at the statistics. We've talked about his leadership. We've talked about the way that the team has insulated him and brought in pieces that work for him. Ben Johnson and Jared Goff are a combination that are elite and making this offensively elite, and I think it will bring the Lions to the next level. We're using that word elite a lot. Is Jared Goff an elite quarterback? Again, that might be a conversation for another day. He's elite for the Detroit Lions. He's elite for this organization. And they need to sign this man now. Now, the number I'm most comfortable with is closer to that $45 million level. I think if you can get him closer to that, again, it saves you a little bit of money to be able to use that elsewhere. If you pay him at 50 or above, I think maybe then then you got to look at this really, really, really hard. But I think based on CBS's projection, if you can get him in that range, I am comfortable with that. I think the Lions should be comfortable with that. I would think that Jared Goff would be comfortable with that. I can't speak for him and know what's in his head or what his agency, his family, and the whole situation is going to look for. But in my opinion, what should the Lions do with Jared Goff? You sign him right now. You don't wait. Don't let him get injured. Don't let other factors come into play. You thought you had a franchise quarterback in Matthew Stafford. He couldn't get you to the level that Jared Goff has gotten you. He couldn't do it. I like Matthew Stafford. I think I like Jared Goff more. And I think this organization does as well. And I think it would be the smartest move for them to sign him right now. I appreciate you guys coming along again. Thank you. We'll have our draft preview show coming up very soon, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure to check out the videos in the archives. Thank you for joining Johnny Gaz Sports today. You guys have a fantastic day.